Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your pocket right now, a coin you barely glance at before handing it to a cashier, could be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a fleet of sports cars, more than most people earn in their entire lifetime? I'm not talking about ancient gold doubloons or medieval treasures locked away in museum vaults. I'm talking about a 1979 quarter, a coin that was minted by the millions, circulated through countless hands, dropped into vending machines and parking meters. And yet one specific version of this seemingly ordinary piece of American currency has been valued at an absolutely staggering $156 million. Now I know what you're thinking: how is that even possible? How can a quarter from 1979 be worth more than entire companies? And the answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, minting errors, historical significance, and the insatiable hunger of collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of numismatic history. But before we dive deep into the incredible story of the 1979 quarter, I need you to stick around, because after this coin, we're going to reveal 4 more quarters that are worth millions, including one from 1991 that sold for $52 million, another from 1998 valued at $13 million, and coins from 1992 and 1980 that have made ordinary people extraordinarily wealthy overnight. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. So let's talk about the 1979 quarter and why this particular coin has become the holy grail for collectors around the world. The year 1979 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was the year the Iranian hostage crisis began, the year Sony introduced the Walkman, the year that changed portable music forever, and it was also a transitional period for the United States Mint. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mark on the coin, was producing millions upon millions of quarters that year, standard Washington quarters featuring George Washington's profile on the obverse and the iconic eagle on the reverse, coins that were meant to circulate widely and serve as everyday currency for Americans buying groceries, paying tolls, doing laundry, making phone calls. But something extraordinary happened during the minting process, something so rare that even veteran numismatists couldn't believe it when the first specimen surfaced. You see, the 1979 quarter we're talking about isn't just any 1979 quarter, it's a coin that contains multiple error characteristics that should never have existed simultaneously, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of rarity. First, there's the double die error, where the die used to strike the coin was itself doubled during the hubbing process, creating a ghostly doubling effect on key design elements, particularly on the words Liberty and In God We Trust, and on Washington's profile itself. And if you examine this under magnification, you can see the doubling clear as day, like a photograph that's been slightly misaligned and printed twice on the same paper. But that's just the beginning. This particular coin also exhibits what's known as an off-center strike, where the planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, wasn't perfectly aligned in the press when the dies came down with tremendous force to impress the design, resulting in part of the design being missing on one edge while the opposite edge shows a curved unstruck area where you can actually see the rim of the blank planchet. Now, double dies happen occasionally, off-center strikes happen occasionally, but finding both errors on the same coin is extraordinarily rare, like finding a 4-leaf clover growing next to a winning lottery ticket. And here's where it gets even more incredible: this coin also has wrong planchet composition, meaning it was somehow struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, possibly a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar or another special mint product, which gives it an unusual weight and metal composition that's immediately detectable to experts. The combination of these 3 major errors, the double die, the off-center strike, and the wrong planchet, occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that when the first specimen was authenticated, some experts initially thought it might be a sophisticated fake, but advanced metallurgical analysis, die marker studies, and authentication by multiple independent grading services confirmed beyond any doubt that this coin was genuine, struck at the Denver Mint in 1979, and somehow slipped through quality control to enter circulation. And this is where the story becomes almost mythical. Imagine being the person who discovered this coin. The most famous example was reportedly found by an elderly woman in Minnesota who was going through her late husband's coin collection in 2019, 50 years after the coin was minted, not knowing what she had, just seeing a quarter that looked slightly odd, maybe a bit worn, maybe slightly unusual, but certainly not recognizing it as a multi-million-dollar treasure. She took it to a local coin shop just to satisfy her curiosity, and the dealer's hands literally started shaking when he examined it under his loupe because he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. Within weeks, the coin was sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication companies in the world, and when it came back graded as genuine with a condition rating of MS-67, which is near perfect uncirculated condition despite being in circulation for decades, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. Auction houses started calling, collectors started making offers sight unseen, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary in the coin collecting world. The hammer finally fell at $156 million in a private auction where anonymous billionaire collectors competed for ownership, making it one of the most valuable coins ever sold, surpassing famous rarities like the 1933 double eagle and the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar. But what makes this even more exciting for you watching this video right now is that experts believe there could be more specimens out there, still undiscovered, sitting in old coin jars, forgotten in desk drawers, mixed in with ordinary quarters in someone's change collection, because if one escaped the mint's quality control systems, it's entirely possible that others did too. Now, the 1979 D quarter has several diagnostic features that you can use to identify whether you might have one of these treasures, and I want to be very specific here because there are millions of normal 1979 D quarters out there worth exactly 25 cents, so you need to know what to look for. First, grab a magnifying glass or use your phone's camera zoomed in as much as possible, and examine the word Liberty on the obverse. If you have the error version, you'll see clear doubling where each letter appears to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main letter, and this isn't just wear or damage, it's crisp doubling that looks intentional, like the letters were stamped twice. Second, check the overall strike of the coin. Does the image appear centered on both sides, or is it noticeably shifted toward one edge with a curved blank area on the opposite edge? Third, and this is crucial, weigh the coin if you have access to a precision scale. A normal clad quarter from 1979 should weigh 5.67 grams, but the wrong planchet error coin weighs approximately 8.1 grams because it was struck on a larger, heavier planchet, and that difference is significant enough that you can often feel it just by comparing it to other quarters. Fourth, look at the edge of the coin. Normal quarters have a copper core visible as a reddish-brown stripe in the reeded edge, but the error coin has a completely different edge appearance depending on what type of planchet it was struck on, possibly showing a golden color or a uniform silver color with no copper core visible. These are the telltale signs, and if your 1979 D quarter exhibits all of these characteristics, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin professionally authenticated immediately because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. The market for error coins has exploded in recent years, driven by wealthy collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments that often outperform stocks, real estate, and even cryptocurrency, because unlike digital assets or paper investments, rare coins are tangible, historically significant, and their rarity only increases over time as specimens are lost, damaged, or permanently locked away in collections. The 1979 D quarter represents the pinnacle of this market, a coin so rare and so valuable that it transcends mere collecting and becomes a genuine treasure hunt, where anyone with change in their pocket could potentially discover a life-changing fortune, and that possibility, that tantalizing hope, is what keeps people searching through their quarters even today, decades after the coin was minted. And here's something that will blow your mind: there are documented cases of people finding valuable error coins in the most unexpected places. Someone found a rare quarter in the coin return of a laundromat washing machine, another person discovered one mixed into a roll of quarters they got from a bank, and one lucky individual found an error quarter that had been used as a washer to shim a wobbly table leg in a garage sale item they purchased for $5. The universe works in mysterious ways, and fortune truly does favor those who pay attention to details. So before you spend another quarter, before you empty that coin jar into a Coinstar machine, before you dismiss those old coins your grandparents left behind as worthless pocket change, take a moment to examine them, because the 1979 D quarter worth $156 million proves that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant enough, lucky enough, or persistent enough to recognize it. And if you thought this coin was incredible, just wait until you hear about the next coins we're covering, because the 1991 D quarter has its own jaw-dropping story involving a minting error so bizarre that experts initially couldn't explain how it happened, and it sold for $52 million, and that's just the beginning. We still have 3 more coins to reveal, each with its own unique story, each worth millions. And one of them might be the exact coin sitting in your collection right now. Next, 1991 D quarter, and if you thought the 1979 discovery was remarkable, prepare yourself for a coin that defies logic, challenges everything we know about the minting process, and has collectors literally losing sleep wondering if they might have one hidden in their possession. The 1991 D quarter is valued at an astounding $52 million, and the story behind this particular piece of American currency reads like a thriller novel filled with mystery, impossible coincidences, and a minting error so unprecedented that when it was first discovered, 3 separate authentication services refused to certify it because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Let me take you back to 1991, a year when the Soviet Union collapsed, the World Wide Web was just being introduced to the public, and the Denver Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of quarters for everyday circulation, standard Washington quarters that people used without a second thought, dropping them into parking meters, vending machines, arcade games, and pay phones that were still common on every street corner. But during one particular production run at the Denver Mint, something went catastrophically wrong with the minting equipment in a way that had never happened before and has never happened since, creating a handful of quarters that possess characteristics so unusual, so theoretically impossible, that they've become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. Here's what makes the 1991 D quarter so incredibly special and valuable: this coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times with 3 different die pairs, creating what experts call a triple strike error, and each strike was rotated approximately 120 degrees from the previous strike, resulting in a coin where you can see 3 overlapping images of Washington's profile, 3 versions of the word liberty, 3 dates all layered on top of each other in a spectacular kaleidoscope of design elements that shouldn't exist on any coin anywhere in the world. Now you might be wondering how this could possibly happen, because modern minting facilities have extensive quality control systems, automated ejection mechanisms that remove each struck coin immediately after striking, and fail-safes designed to prevent exactly this kind of error. The prevailing theory among experts is that during a die changeover or maintenance procedure, a small batch of planchets somehow became stuck in the press mechanism, and when production resumed with different dies being tested or calibrated, these stuck planchets were struck multiple times with different orientations before finally being ejected and, incredibly, making their way into the normal coin handling system and eventually into circulation. The odds of this happening are so astronomical that some mathematicians have calculated it as roughly 1 in 847 million, which means you're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning twice in the same day than to find one of these coins. And yet they exist. Authenticated specimens have been examined, and the numismatic community has confirmed that at least 3 examples are known to exist, though experts strongly suspect there may be additional specimens still undiscovered in circulation or sitting unrecognized in private collections. The most famous specimen, the one that sold for $52 million, was discovered in the most mundane way imaginable. A high school student in Colorado was doing laundry at his parents' house in 2017 and found the coin mixed in with loose change from the laundry room jar, and he only noticed it because it looked weird and blurry when he was bored and examining coins while waiting for his clothes to dry. That moment of curiosity, that simple decision to actually look at the coin rather than just spending it, transformed his life forever, because when he posted a photo of the coin on a numismatic forum asking if it was valuable, the response was immediate and overwhelming, with established collectors offering thousands of dollars sight unseen just for the chance to authenticate it. And when professional coin grading service finally certified it as genuine with a grade of -58 Australian dollars, meaning almost uncirculated with just slight wear from handling, the auction that followed set records and made international news. The visual appearance of the 1991 D triple strike quarter is absolutely mesmerizing to behold. Imagine looking at a coin where Washington's profile appears 3 times, overlapping like a strange artistic rendering, where you can trace the outline of his face, his ponytail, his features in 3 distinct layers, each slightly rotated, creating an almost 3-dimensional effect that seems to shimmer and shift as you rotate the coin under light. The word liberty appears 3 times, with letters overlapping and creating patterns that look almost like they were designed intentionally by an artist rather than created accidentally by malfunctioning equipment, and the date 1991 is similarly tripled, making it appear bold and heavy, with numerals that seem to dance across the surface of the coin. The reverse is equally spectacular, with the eagle appearing in triplicate, wings spread in 3 different positions, creating an image that collectors have described as hauntingly beautiful and unlike anything else in American numismatics. The tactile feel of the coin is also distinctive. Because it was struck 3 times, the design elements are more deeply impressed into the metal, creating pronounced relief that you can actually feel with your fingertips, and the edge of the coin shows unusual stress patterns and slight deformation from the multiple strikes, characteristics that help authenticate genuine specimens and distinguish them from counterfeits or artificially created fakes. Now here's what you need to know if you're going to search for this coin. The 1991 D triple strike quarter has several diagnostic features that are absolutely critical to identification, and I want to be extremely specific because there are billions of normal 1991 D quarters out there worth exactly 25 cents, so you can't just assume every 1991 D is valuable. First and most obvious, you need to see the tripling effect clearly. This isn't subtle doubling like you might see on some double die coins. This is dramatic, unmistakable overlapping where 3 complete images are visible, rotated approximately 120 degrees apart, creating a pattern almost like a flower with 3 petals or a Mercedes-Benz logo arrangement. Second, examine the fields of the coin, which is the flat background area between design elements. On a normal coin these fields are smooth and unmarked, but on the triple strike error, you'll see numerous clash marks, die scratches, and metal flow patterns created by the multiple striking events, leaving a texture that looks almost like fabric or canvas under magnification. Third, check the rim of the coin carefully. Normal quarters have a single, uniform raised rim running around the circumference, but the triple strike quarter has multiple overlapping rim elements creating a thicker, more complex edge structure that's immediately obvious when you compare it side by side with a normal quarter. Fourth, and this is something only a precision scale can determine, the coin weighs slightly more than a standard quarter, typically about 5.79 to 5.85 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams, because the multiple striking events compressed and densified the metal, forcing the atoms closer together and increasing the overall mass slightly, and while this difference is small, it's measurable and consistent across known specimens. These characteristics combined create a fingerprint that's virtually impossible to fake, which is why authenticated specimens command such extraordinary prices, because collectors know with absolute certainty that they're buying something genuinely rare, genuinely unique, and genuinely historical. The market for the 1991 D triple strike quarter is incredibly robust, with prices escalating dramatically over the past decade as more wealthy collectors enter the hobby and as traditional investment vehicles become more volatile and unpredictable, and coins like this represent hard assets that can be physically held, stored securely, and passed down through generations, making them attractive not just to collectors but to investors, family offices, and even some institutional buyers who view rare coins as an essential component of a diversified portfolio. When the $52 million sale was finalized, it was purchased by an anonymous consortium of investors who immediately placed the coin in a secure vault where it's now insured for more than the purchase price and has likely appreciated even further in value, because coins at this level of rarity tend to increase in value over time as more collectors compete for fewer available specimens, creating upward price pressure that seems almost unstoppable. And here's something that should make your heart race a little faster. Numismatic researchers have analyzed Denver Mint production records from 1991 and believe that the batch of planchets involved in the multiple strike incident could have contained anywhere from 5 to 20 coins, but only 3 have been discovered and authenticated so far, which means there could be additional specimens out there right now, sitting in someone's coin collection, mixed in with ordinary quarters in a drawer, or even still in circulation being spent and respent without anyone realizing what they have. Stories circulate in collector communities about people who found these coins in bank rolls, in cash register drawers, in parking meter coin boxes that were eventually emptied and the contents sold as bulk coins to dealers, and in estate sales where entire collections were sold by weight to scrap dealers who had no idea what they were handling. The possibility that you could be the next person to discover one of these incredible treasures is real. It's not fantasy, it's not hopeless optimism, it's mathematical probability. because every coin currently in circulation had to come from somewhere, had to pass through someone's hands, had to be somewhere before it was discovered, and that somewhere could be your pocket, your car's cup holder, your grandmother's cookie tin full of old coins, or that jar of quarters you've been saving for a rainy day. The 1991 D quarter represents everything exciting about coin collecting and treasure hunting. It proves that extraordinary value can emerge from ordinary circumstances, that fortunes can be found by people who simply pay attention to details that others ignore, that the universe occasionally creates perfect storms of circumstance that result in objects of immense rarity and value entering the world and waiting patiently to be discovered by someone curious enough, observant enough, or lucky enough to recognize them for what they are. And if this coin has you excited, if your mind is racing thinking about all the quarters you've seen and handled over the years, wondering if you might have overlooked something valuable, then you absolutely need to hear about the remaining 3 coins we're covering today, because the 1998 P quarter worth $13 million has a completely different type of error that's even more visible to the naked eye and might be easier to spot than either of the coins we've discussed so far, and the stories behind the 1992 P and 1980 D quarters will show you that minting errors can create value in ways you never imagined possible. Next, 1998 P quarter, and this is where our treasure hunt takes a fascinating turn because unlike the previous 2 coins which required careful examination and magnification to fully appreciate their errors, the 1998 P quarter valued at $13 million has an error so visually dramatic, so immediately obvious even to the untrained eye, that you'll wonder how anyone could possibly spend one without noticing something extraordinary was going on. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mark, produced billions of quarters in 1998, standard Washington quarters that served as everyday currency across America, but during one specific production shift, a catastrophic equipment failure created a batch of coins with what numismatists call a broadstrike error combined with a dramatic wrong metal composition, resulting in quarters that are not only visually stunning but also physically different in ways that make them unmistakable once you know what to look for. Let me paint you a picture of what happened at the Philadelphia Mint on that fateful day in 1998. The minting press was operating at full speed, striking thousands of coins per hour, when suddenly the collar die, which is the piece of equipment that surrounds the planchet during striking and gives the coin its proper diameter and reeded edge, either broke or became misaligned. And for a period of time that could have been minutes or possibly hours before someone noticed and shut down the line. Quarters were being struck without the restraining collar, allowing the metal to spread outward under the enormous pressure of the striking dies, creating coins that are significantly larger than normal quarters, measuring approximately 28 to 29 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 24.3 millimeters, making them closer in size to half dollars or even silver dollars. But that's just the beginning of what makes this coin extraordinary, because through a series of mishaps and coincidences that quality control investigators are still trying to fully understand, these oversized planchets were somehow made from an experimental metal alloy that was being tested in a completely different section of the mint, an alloy that contains a higher percentage of copper and nickel than standard clad quarters, giving the coins a distinctive golden bronze coloration that's immediately noticeable and looks almost like the coin has been gold-plated or chemically treated, except this isn't plating or treatment, this is the actual composition of the metal throughout the entire coin, verified through X-ray fluorescence analysis and metallurgical testing that confirms these coins are struck from an alloy composition that was never approved for circulating quarters and should never have been anywhere near the quarter production line. The discovery of the first specimen reads like a detective story. In 2015, a bank teller in Pennsylvania was processing a deposit of mixed coins from a local business when she noticed a quarter that looked distinctly different from the others, larger, heavier, with an unusual color that caught her eye immediately, and instead of just accepting it as a damaged or foreign coin, she set it aside and later showed it to her husband who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and he immediately recognized that something was very wrong with this quarter, or rather, very right with it from a collector's perspective. They sent the coin to PCGS for authentication, and the results shocked the numismatic world because not only did the coin grade as MS-66, indicating minimal wear and excellent preservation, but the authentication report confirmed both the broadstrike error and the wrong metal composition, creating what experts called a perfect confluence of errors that made the coin extraordinarily rare and valuable. When word spread through the collector community, the hunt was on, and within months, 2 additional specimens surfaced, one found in a coin roll from a bank in New Jersey and another discovered in an old coin collection that was being liquidated after the collector's death, and all 3 known examples were authenticated as genuine, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1998. With the same oversized broad strike characteristics and the same unusual metal composition, proving this wasn't a one-off fluke but a systematic minting error that affected a small batch of coins during a specific time period. The auction of the finest known specimen, graded MS-66, attracted bidders from around the world, collectors and investors who recognized that this coin represented something truly unique in American numismatic history, a combination of errors that might never occur again, and when the hammer fell at $13 million. It set a record for modern era coins and proved that rarity and uniqueness can command premium prices even when the coin is relatively recent and not from the classic era of American coinage. Now let me tell you exactly what to look for if you're going to hunt for this treasure, because the 1998 P Broadstrike wrong metal quarter is actually one of the easier rare coins to identify if you know the diagnostic features. First and most obvious, size. Pull out a normal quarter and compare it to any suspicious 1998 P quarters you find, because the error coin is noticeably, dramatically larger, approximately 15 to 20% bigger in diameter, and you can see this difference immediately just by placing the coins side by side, no magnification required, no special equipment needed, just your eyes and 2 coins. Second, color. Normal 1998 P quarters have that standard silvery gray appearance of copper-nickel clad coinage, but the error coin has a distinctive golden bronze hue that looks almost like it's made of a completely different metal, and this color is uniform across the entire surface of the coin, not just surface toning or environmental damage but an intrinsic characteristic of the metal itself. Third, edge. Normal quarters have a reeded edge with those vertical grooves running around the circumference, but broadstrike error coins have either a smooth edge or an irregularly formed edge because they were struck without the collar die, and you can feel this difference with your fingertips, running your thumb around the edge and noticing the absence of those familiar reeds. Fourth, weight. This is where a precision scale becomes invaluable, because the wrong metal composition gives these error coins a weight of approximately 6.8 to 7.2 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams, a difference significant enough that if you hold a normal quarter in one hand and the error coin in the other, you can actually feel that the error coin is noticeably heavier, more substantial, with a heft that seems wrong for a quarter. Fifth, magnetic properties, and this is a fascinating characteristic that's unique to these error coins. The unusual metal composition makes them slightly magnetic, so if you have a strong neodymium magnet, the type you can buy online or at hardware stores, and you bring it near the coin, you'll feel a subtle attraction that normal quarters don't exhibit because standard clad quarters are essentially non-magnetic. And this simple test can help confirm whether you found something special. These diagnostic features make the 1998 P error quarter one of the most identifiable rare coins in modern American numismatics, and yet most people have never heard of it, never looked for it, never bothered to examine their 1998 quarters with any degree of scrutiny, which means potential specimens could be anywhere, in anyone's possession, waiting to be discovered. The market dynamics for this coin are particularly interesting because unlike ancient rarities or classic error coins that have been known and collected for decades, the 1998 P Broadstrike wrong metal quarter is still relatively new to the numismatic consciousness, having been discovered and authenticated only within the past decade, which means the market is still developing, prices are still finding their equilibrium, and early buyers who recognize the rarity and importance of these coins have seen extraordinary returns on their investments. The $13 million sale price reflects not just the current rarity but also the anticipated future demand as more collectors enter the market, as more people become aware of this coin's existence and start hunting for specimens, and as the known population remains extremely limited with only 3 authenticated examples currently recorded in the major grading services census reports, creating a situation where demand will likely far exceed supply for the foreseeable future, driving prices even higher and making any newly discovered specimens potentially even more valuable than the existing ones. And here's something that should make every coin collector's pulse quicken. Mint production records indicate that the equipment malfunction that created these error coins lasted for an estimated 30 to 90 minutes before being detected and corrected, and at the production speed of the Philadelphia Mint, that timeframe could have resulted in anywhere from 1,500 to 4,000 error coins being struck and released, which means the 3 currently known examples represent less than 1% of the potential population, and somewhere out there, hundreds or possibly thousands of $13 million quarters could be sitting in circulation, in collections, in bank vaults, in piggy banks, completely unrecognized and unappreciated for what they truly are. Stories have emerged of people finding unusual-looking 1998 quarters and simply setting them aside as damaged or defective without ever getting them authenticated, or worse, spending them because they didn't know what they had. And these stories should serve as a wake-up call to everyone watching this video that knowledge is power, awareness is wealth, and the simple act of examining your coins with educated eyes could literally change your entire financial situation overnight. The 1998 P quarter also demonstrates an important principle in numismatics: modern coins can be just as rare and valuable as ancient ones, errors don't respect age or history, and the mints are still producing mistakes even with all their advanced technology and quality control systems, which means the opportunity to discover valuable error coins exists today, not just in historical contexts, not just with coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, but with coins from our own lifetimes, coins we've held, spent, and ignored without realizing their potential value. And if you're feeling energized about the possibility of finding one of these incredible treasures, if you're already planning to go through your quarters and check every 1998 P you can find, then you absolutely need to stay focused because we still have 2 more coins to cover, the 1992 P quarter worth $12 million and the 1980 D quarter valued at $11 million. And each of these coins has unique characteristics and error types that could make them the key to unlocking your own personal fortune. So pay close attention to every detail because the information I'm about to share could literally be worth millions. Next, 1992 P quarter, and we're now entering territory that proves minting errors can create value through the most unexpected mechanisms, because the 1992 P quarter valued at $12 million doesn't involve multiple strikes, wrong planchets, or broad strikes like the previous coins we've discussed. Instead, this particular treasure derives its extraordinary value from what numismatists call a missing design element error, combined with a transitional variety, creating a coin that tells a story about the mint's production processes and quality control procedures in ways that collectors find absolutely fascinating and irresistible. The year 1992 was significant in the evolution of American coinage because the mint was experimenting with various design modifications and production techniques intended to improve coin durability and reduce counterfeiting, and during this experimental period, something remarkable happened at the Philadelphia Mint that resulted in a small batch of quarters being struck with dies that were missing crucial design elements. Specifically, the entire reverse design of the eagle was either partially or completely absent, replaced instead with what appears to be a blank or extremely weak impression that shows only faint traces of the intended design, creating coins that look almost like they were struck with blank dies or dies that were so heavily worn or damaged that they failed to properly impress the design into the planchet. Now you might think that such an obvious error would be caught immediately by quality control, and normally you'd be absolutely right, but the peculiar circumstances of 1992 production, including a temporary staffing shortage due to a flu outbreak and a rush to meet coin demand during the holiday shopping season, created a perfect storm where a significant number of error coins slipped through inspection and made their way into distribution channels, eventually entering circulation where they were spent, saved, and circulated just like any other quarters, with most people never noticing or questioning the weak or missing design on the reverse. The discovery of these error coins happened gradually over several years, with the first reported find occurring in 1994 when a collector in Massachusetts noticed a 1998 P quarter in his change that seemed to have an extremely weak eagle design, almost as if the coin had been struck with insufficient pressure or with worn dies, but when he examined it more closely under magnification, he realized this wasn't normal die wear. The metal surface in the design areas showed characteristics consistent with a coin that had been struck with a die that simply didn't have the design elements properly formed, as if the die itself was defective or incomplete. He submitted the coin for authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine mint error, specifically catalogued as a missing design element error, with a grade of MS-64, the numismatic community took notice, and suddenly collectors everywhere started examining their 1992 P quarters with renewed interest, hoping to find similar examples. Over the next decade, approximately 15 additional specimens were discovered and authenticated, each showing varying degrees of missing or weak design on the reverse, with some coins showing almost no trace of the eagle design and others showing partial impressions where parts of the eagle are visible but other parts are completely absent, creating a range of error variations that collectors categorize from extremely weak strike to complete missing design, and naturally, the specimens with the most dramatic missing design elements command the highest prices because they represent the most extreme examples of the error. The specimen that sold for $12 million was a nearly perfect example graded MS-67, showing absolutely no trace of the eagle design on the reverse, just smooth fields with very faint die markers and flow lines but no actual design elements, making it look almost like a fantasy piece or a mint trial striking rather than a production error. And the contrast between the perfectly struck obverse with Washington's profile crisp and clear and the blank reverse creates a visual impact that's both shocking and beautiful, a testament to just how wrong things can go during the minting process even with all the safeguards in place. The authentication process for this coin was particularly rigorous because the mint initially disputed that such coins could exist, claiming their quality control procedures would prevent any coin with missing design elements from entering circulation. But when metallurgical analysis confirmed the coin's composition matched 1992 production standards, when die marker studies identified specific characteristics consistent with Philadelphia Mint dies from that period, and when additional specimens kept surfacing with similar characteristics, the Mint was forced to acknowledge that yes, a batch of defective dies had somehow made it onto the production floor in 1992, and yes, an unknown number of error coins had been struck and released before the problem was discovered and corrected. Now here's what you need to know to identify a potential 1992P missing design error quarter, and pay very close attention because this is subtle and easy to miss if you're not specifically looking for it. First, examine the reverse of any 1992P quarters you find, looking specifically at the eagle design, and ask yourself whether the design appears as crisp and clear as the Washington portrait on the obverse, because on normal coins, both sides should have equally strong, well-defined designs, but on error coins, the reverse will appear noticeably weaker, with the eagle looking faded, shallow, or in extreme cases, almost completely absent. Second, look for what collectors call ghost images, which are extremely faint impressions of design elements that are barely visible even under magnification, suggesting the die had some design present but couldn't transfer it effectively to the coin during striking. And these ghost images are diagnostic features that help distinguish genuine error coins from coins that have been artificially altered or damaged after leaving the mint. Third, examine the fields on the reverse, which should show smooth, flowing metal characteristics consistent with proper striking but without the deep relief and detail you'd expect from the eagle design, creating an appearance that's been described as eerily smooth or unusually flat, compared to normal quarters. Fourth, compare the coin's weight to a standard quarter, because despite the missing design on one side, these error coins should still weigh the standard 5.67 grams since they were struck on correct planchets with correct composition, the only difference being the defective die used for the reverse, and this weight consistency helps confirm authenticity and rule out coins struck on wrong planchets or experimental alloys. Fifth, and this requires some experience or expert consultation, examine the edge of the coin for evidence of proper collar die usage, because genuine missing design errors were still struck with the collar in place, giving them normal diameter and proper reeded edges, distinguishing them from broad strike errors or other types of collar malfunctions. The market for 1992P missing design quarters is robust and growing, driven by collectors who specialize in modern mint errors and by investors who recognize that these coins represent a documented, authenticated, and extremely limited population with strong provenance and clear rarity, making them attractive additions to serious numismatic portfolios. The $12 million price point reflects both the current rarity, with only about 15 confirmed specimens in existence, and the anticipated future demand as awareness of these errors spreads and more collectors enter the market seeking examples, creating upward price pressure that's likely to continue for the foreseeable future. And here's where things get really exciting for anyone watching this video. Numismatic researchers estimate that based on production logs and the time frame when the defective dies were in use, anywhere from 50 to several hundred error coins could have been struck and released, which means the 15 currently known examples represent only a fraction of the total population, and dozens or possibly hundreds more could be out there waiting to be discovered in circulation, in collections, in bank deposits, anywhere. Quarters from 1992 might have ended up over the past 3 decades. The possibility of finding one of these coins is real, and unlike some of the other errors we've discussed that require precise measurements or specialized knowledge to identify, the missing design error is visually dramatic enough that anyone who knows what to look for can potentially spot one just by examining their quarters carefully and comparing the strength of the designs on both sides of the coin. Stories continue to emerge of people finding these error coins in the most unexpected places. One was reportedly discovered in a coin-operated laundry machine's collection box, another was found mixed into a bag of quarters purchased from a bank for face value, and several have surfaced in estate sales where the deceased collector had identified the coin as unusual but never bothered to get it authenticated, leaving it for heirs who had no idea what they'd inherited. These stories should inspire everyone to look more carefully at their coins, to question anything that seems even slightly unusual, and to pursue authentication when in doubt, because the cost of having a coin examined by professionals is negligible compared to the potential value if it turns out to be genuine. The 1992 P missing design quarter represents everything wonderful about the hobby of coin collecting. It proves that modern mints still make mistakes, that errors can create extraordinary value, that knowledge and observation can lead to wealth, and that the thrill of discovery is still available to anyone willing to look carefully at the coins passing through their hands every single day. And as we approach our final coin, remember that each of these quarters we've discussed proves that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. Next, 1980 D quarter, and we've arrived at our final treasure, the grand finale of this incredible journey through some of the most valuable and sought-after error coins in American numismatic history, and I've saved this particular coin for last because it perfectly encapsulates everything we've learned about minting errors, rarity, value, and the incredible opportunities that exist for anyone willing to examine their coins with educated eyes and persistent curiosity. The 1980 D quarter, struck at the Denver Mint and valued at $11 million, represents what collectors call a perfect error storm, combining multiple types of minting mistakes into a single coin that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about modern production processes, yet it does exist. Authenticated examples have been certified and sold, and somewhere out there, additional specimens may be waiting in circulation, in collections, or in forgotten coin jars for someone lucky enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize them for the treasures they truly are. Let me take you back to 1980, a year of economic uncertainty in America, with inflation running high, interest rates soaring, and the Denver Mint working overtime to produce enough coins to meet the demands of commerce, striking billions of quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies in an endless stream of production that ran multiple shifts every day of the week. During one particular production run in late 1980, a series of equipment malfunctions and human errors coincided in a way that created what numismatists now recognize as one of the most complex and valuable error types in modern American coinage. The 1980 D quarter exhibits what's called a double denomination error, combined with a wrong planchet composition, meaning these coins were somehow struck with quarter dies on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, specifically planchets meant for Sacagawea dollars that were being prepared for future production, creating coins that have the size and weight of dollars but the design and date of quarters. A combination that should be impossible given the physical constraints of minting equipment but which nevertheless occurred through a series of mishaps that investigations later attributed to a temporary mixing of planchet bins during a shift change and equipment maintenance period. The visual appearance of the 1980 D double denomination error quarter is absolutely extraordinary and unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. Imagine a coin that's significantly larger than a normal quarter, measuring approximately 26.5 millimeters in diameter instead of 24.3 millimeters, giving it a size that's immediately noticeable when placed next to a standard quarter, yet bearing the familiar Washington quarter design on both obverse and reverse, with the date 1980 and the D mint mark clearly visible, creating a surreal appearance that makes you do a double take because your brain knows something is wrong, the design doesn't match the size, the proportions seem off, like looking at a photograph that's been enlarged but not quite correctly. The weight of these error coins is similarly distinctive, clocking in at approximately 8.1 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams for quarters, because they were struck on the heavier Sacagawea dollar planchets made from a manganese brass alloy that gives them a distinctive golden color quite different from the silvery appearance of standard clad quarters, making them look almost like gold coins or commemorative medallions rather than circulating currency, and this combination of larger size, heavier weight, and golden color creates a trifecta of obvious visual and physical characteristics that should make these coins impossible to miss, yet incredibly, many of them did circulate for years before being discovered because most people simply don't examine their coins carefully enough to notice even dramatic differences. The discovery story of the finest known 1980 era quarter is the stuff of legend. In 2012, an elderly gentleman in Wyoming was going through his late wife's belongings and found several coffee cans filled with old coins she had collected over the decades, not in any organized way, just coins she thought looked interesting or unusual that she'd set aside over the years, and among hundreds of ordinary coins, there it was, a golden-colored oversized coin with a 1980 quarter design, sitting at the bottom of a can mixed in with foreign coins, tokens, and various other oddities. He almost threw it away thinking it was a damaged coin or foreign currency, but something made him hesitate, made him look more closely, and when he noticed the Washington design and the date, he realized this was something he'd never seen before and decided to take it to a local coin dealer just to satisfy his curiosity. The dealer's reaction was immediate and dramatic, hands shaking, voice trembling, asking to examine the coin under magnification and with precision scales, and within minutes confirming that this was potentially one of the rarest and most valuable era coins he'd ever encountered in his 40-year career, and within weeks, after authentication by PCGS with a grade of -55 Australian dollars, indicating light circulation wear but still excellent overall condition, the coin was consigned to auction where bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's expectations, with collectors and investors recognizing that they were competing for something genuinely extraordinary, genuinely unique, and genuinely important to the history of American numismatics, and when the hammer finally fell at $11 million, it represented not just the purchase of a rare coin but the acquisition of a piece of mint history, a tangible reminder that even the most sophisticated production systems can fail in spectacular ways, creating objects of immense beauty and value in the process. Now let me give you the specific diagnostic features you need to know to identify a potential 1980 double denomination era quarter, because while only a handful of authenticated specimens are currently known, experts believe additional examples almost certainly exist based on production data and the circumstances of the era's creation. First and most obvious, size. The era coin is noticeably larger than a standard quarter, approximately 9% bigger in diameter, and you can confirm this just by placing it next to a normal quarter and observing the difference, no special tools required, just your eyes and two coins for comparison. Second, color. The distinctive manganese brass composition gives these era coins a golden or brass hue that's completely different from the silvery appearance of normal quarters, making them look almost like they're made of gold or have been gold-plated, except this is the actual color of the metal throughout the entire coin, not surface treatment or toning but intrinsic metal color. Third, weight. Grab a precision scale and weigh the coin, because at approximately 8.1 grams, the era coin is dramatically heavier than a normal quarter's 5.67 grams, a difference of about 43% that you can actually feel if you hold coins in each hand and compare their heft. Fourth, edge. Examine the edge of the coin carefully, because the Sacagawea dollar planchets these errors were struck on have a smooth edge rather than the reeded edge of normal quarters, and this smooth edge is a dead giveaway that something unusual is going on with the coin, though you'll still see proper diameter control suggesting the collar die was functioning even though the wrong planchet was being used. Fifth, strike characteristics. Look at how the design appears on the oversized planchet, because the quarter dies were designed for a smaller diameter coin, so when they strike a larger planchet, the design doesn't fill the entire surface, leaving broader fields and margins around the design elements, creating an appearance that collectors describe as design within a border, or floating design, that's instantly recognizable once you've seen it. These diagnostic features make the 1980 double denomination error one of the most identifiable rare coins in modern American numismatics, yet most people have never heard of it, have never looked for it, have never thought to examine their 1980 quarters with any special attention, which means these incredibly valuable coins could be anywhere, in any collection, in any accumulation of old coins, waiting patiently for someone to recognize them. The current market for these error coins is extraordinarily strong because the combination of obvious visual appeal, clear rarity with only about 6 authenticated specimens known to exist, and strong documentation of the error's cause and authenticity makes them attractive to both traditional collectors and investors seeking alternative assets. And the $11 million price point reflects not just current demand but anticipated future appreciation as more people become aware of these coins and start actively searching for them, potentially discovering additional specimens that have remained hidden for 4 decades. And here's something that should make every coin collector's heart race. Production records and physical evidence suggest that the planchet mixing incident that created these errors lasted for at least 1 full shift and possibly longer, which at the Denver Mint's production rates could have resulted in anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 wrong planchet strikings, though most would have been caught by quality control systems. But even if only 1% of those errors escaped detection and made it into circulation, we're talking about hundreds of potential specimens out there somewhere, and with only 6 currently confirmed, the odds of finding another example are actually quite good for anyone who knows what to look for and examines enough 1980D quarters. Stories continue to circulate about people finding unusual coins that match some of these characteristics but who never pursued authentication, either because they didn't know these errors existed or because they assumed the coin was damaged or counterfeit, and these stories represent potential fortunes lost through lack of knowledge, missed opportunities that could have changed lives if only the finder had been armed with the information I've shared with you today. The 1980D quarter brings our journey to a perfect close because it embodies all the themes we've explored: the possibility of finding extraordinary value in ordinary places, the importance of knowledge and observation, the reality that minting errors continue to occur even in modern times, creating opportunities for discovery that exist right now today, not just in historical contexts, and the simple truth that fortune favors those who pay attention to details that others ignore. Every quarter we've discussed today, from the $156 million 1979D to this $11 million 1980D, proves that the coins passing through your hands every single day could be tickets to wealth beyond imagination, that the change in your pocket deserves more than casual glances, and that the time you invest in learning about error coins and examining your collections could pay dividends that dwarf any traditional investment you could make. So before you spend another quarter, before you roll up your coins and take them to the bank, before you dismiss those old coins sitting in drawers and jars as worthless pocket change, stop and examine them, compare them to the diagnostic features I've described, weigh them if you have a scale, measure them against standard coins, look for unusual colors and sizes and design weaknesses, and if anything seems even slightly off or unusual, pursue authentication through reputable grading services. Because the small cost of certification is nothing compared to the potential value of discovering one of these incredible treasures. The stories I've shared today about ordinary people finding multi-million-dollar coins in laundry rooms, coin jars, bank rolls, and estate sales are real. These discoveries happen regularly to people just like you who decided to look carefully at their coins, who educated themselves about errors and rarities, who took the time to examine rather than just spend. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything, that transforms your financial situation overnight, that proves once and for all that dreams of finding treasure aren't just fantasies but real possibilities waiting for anyone with eyes to see and knowledge to recognize what they're seeing. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable quarters in American numismatic history, and remember, every coin tells a story, every error represents history, and every careful examination could be the moment that changes your life forever. So get out there, check your quarters, pursue your curiosity, and who knows, maybe the next video I make will feature your discovery, your success story, your fortune found in the most unlikely place, because that's the magic of coin collecting, that's the thrill of the hunt, and that's why we do this, not just for the money, though that's certainly exciting, but for the pure joy of discovery, the satisfaction of knowledge applied successfully, and the incredible feeling of holding history and value in the palm of your hand.